So how does an associate nationwide agent of 31 years become an independent insurance agency owner? Let me introduce you to Catrina Chester of Chester Insurance in Berryville, Arkansas. Catrina, I want to thank you for joining me today for the episode of Coffee Talk
Oh, you're welcome.
podcast.
Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Why don't you share with our audience how you got started in insurance?
Well, oddly enough, I actually started working in an agency directly out of high school. Wasn't real sure what direction I wanted to go in life. And anyway, it ended up being a good fit. And so I went ahead and got licensed and started into the insurance business. Arthur Royston, that I worked for at the time, had taken over an office in Berryville, my hometown, and he needed somebody to fill that spot. And so once I had been there and got licensed, then he gave me the opportunity to take over that office and run it. And so then I hired some staff and kind of grew from there, and still in Berryville doing insurance now.
So how did you feel when Nationwide announced to agents that they were going to go independent?
Lots of mixed emotions for sure. Definitely a scary time. Independent agency is not anything I ever thought I wanted to be a part of. And so, yes, just lots of questions, lots of uncertainty. Kind of felt like that some of the changes they were doing might be leading in that direction. So it wasn't a total shock when the announcement came, but definitely lots of emotions.
Did you have a lot of fear? Was there like problems that are arising out of that situation?
Definitely a lot of fear. Not only was Nationwide wanting us to go independent, and the agent I was working for, he was ready to retire. So there was lots of uncertainty with how, that would be handled. And so, it was not only just the fact of kind of being forced to go independent, but also unsure how they would treat our situation.
So that agent had other locations and you all had a deal to purchase that book? Is that how that worked out?
Yes. He had his primary location, and then I had my location, and then there was a third location as well. And over the years, when we would talk about his retirement, there had been discussion about me taking over the entire agency. But when this all came about, that was not, I wasn't really wanting to take over all locations. The furthest location's a couple of hours away, and with all the changes taking place, that just seemed like a lot to tackle at once. And so, we wasn't real sure how that would go. With one agency being split 3 different directions, but that was kind of the way we wanted it to go. And thankfully, Nationwide did allow us to do that. So I just purchased, my book of business with the agency.
What was that process like? And also at the same time, didn't you purchase another independent book as well?
Yes. I had not even thought about possibly purchasing another book of business for sure. And a lady that I'm acquainted with here in our county, and she had actually contacted me and said she was ready to retire, and she wanted to know if I would be interested in purchasing her book of business. We knew each other well enough that she felt like that I run my business a lot like hers, and she just thought it would be a really good fit for her clients. And so anyway, at the time that she was wanting to sell out, looked like it was going to align perfectly with when everything would be changing over with the Nationwide side as well. It ended up that they didn't end up as great on timing as I had hoped for. So that was a little bit crazy there for a while. But yes, looking back now, and of course, LaDonna, you had, I talked to you a lot about, buying that and everything it would take to do that. And really OAA's encouragement in, yes, this is a good move to make, is a lot of why I did feel comfortable with going ahead and buying it. And looking back now, I see that there were so many advantages to me doing that that I didn't even really realize at the time. So yeah, really timing of that offer from the other agent was really a blessing in disguise, I guess. So yeah.
So who helped you during your transition period to independence?
Well, OAA definitely more than anybody. Being with an exclusive agency was so different, and with me being associate, and my office was considered my own agency, if you want to put it that way, within our agency. So I was familiar with running an office and having, all the bills that come with that office and having your own employees and all that. But yet there's just some things as far as when you're dealing directly with the company, the primary agent does that. And so, there was still things that I thought, okay, how much of this process have I really even seen with an exclusive agency? And yet here we are going independent, where I'm going to be working with so many companies. And so that, there's just, I would not have the companies I have today without OAA's help in being able to get all that lined up.
So you found that their services were very vital for you in transitioning to the independent side of things?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can't imagine, how agencies do it without help like that. I feel like I have so many direct appointments that I would not have had without OAA's help. And that was one thing that I have realized now by purchasing that other book of business. That agency had policies with companies that were the same ones that OAA had. And so that kind of gave me an initial book of business that helped me be a step closer to getting those direct appointments. So, a combination, purchasing that book of business, I think helped, but then, OAA being there to help me get those appointments was really very helpful.
When you bought that book, it had a lot of different companies associated with it, right? How did they help you with the transitioning of that book? Did you do any book consolidation deals or in the process of any of those?
Yes, we are in the process right now of a book consolidation. And so it's kind of early in that process, but I'm excited. It seems like a really good way to kind of narrow down some of those companies. Because yes, the agency that I purchased, it wasn't a huge agency, but yet the number of, different companies they were working with was unreal. And to me, that's just a lot to keep up with, with that many different companies. A lot of them were, different brokered companies. And so, even being able to, and, with our exclusive agency, we were able to use some brokered companies if it was something that couldn't go through the exclusive agency. So I had some knowledge of how all of that worked, and I had some really good brokered companies, but yet we were still really limited to what all we could do. And so then, OAA's access to some of the broker companies that are available has been really, really good to help consolidate that. I've learned a lot through trainings with OAA as far as, getting policies transferred and, using those broker of records to where that if I'm going to move some accounts over, I don't necessarily have to requote them all. And so, I've been able to do that, taking them from some of those that there's not very many companies or very many policies with those companies and moving them over. And I've talked to some of the brokers, and, the fact is if we've got a broker that we just have a handful of policies with, it's not a good setup for us or them. And so, nothing against some of the brokers that I'm not using as much now because they've all been really great to work with. But, I think everybody just knows that's just not the ideal situation to continue with just a handful of policies with them.
Right. So it's more about building the relationship and strengthening the relationship, not only with your carriers, but also your wholesalers, brokers, and that kind of thing.
Right.
How has your agency grown in revenue since you went independent?
OAA's commission levels are higher. And so that has definitely helped. The profit sharing, the incentives that, the different companies will have from time to time. There's just so many different aspects of things that are coming in that I'm still kind of having a hard time wrapping my head around, everything that is coming in and, how did we earn this and how do we get more of this? And, so it's definitely a process that has been positive. And so, I'm really anxious to see now that I will be able to kind of compare soon, month to month, from a year earlier. I'm kind of anxious to see how much, difference it really is.
When it comes to growing your agency income and value, who provided the coaching and guidance? And how big of an impact was that to your agency?
OAA has definitely provided, good coaching. I feel like even some of the silliest questions I may ask, they're real good to take time. And, you've answered a lot of my questions. And, Ryan has answered a lot of my questions that, I kind of feel silly asking sometimes because I feel like, okay, maybe I should know this after 31 years in the insurance business. But there's just so many things that, I don't want to assume with an independent agency. And yet things really are different, with independent agency than with exclusive. And so it's been great to have that team that I feel like I can go and ask any question, no matter how silly I think it may sound. And, everybody's just been real nice to take time to explain it to me and help me kind of work through the process. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but everybody's been really patient with me.
Or when you're at the captive, you have a system that they provide for you to take care of all your clients and everything else. Who has really helped you transfer over into the independent side of things with the agency management system and really helped you with understanding how the differences between the captive side of agency management to the independent side of agency management?
Well, we chose to get set up with the EasyLink system. And so, yes, that's been something totally new to me. And I am just blown away at what all is available to us. And with OAA, there's contact there that we can call and say, hey, with EasyLinks, how do we do this or that? And, the rater, that was one thing I dreaded about independent agency is literally going into this website and this website and this website, to do quoting, but to have the rater available to be able to kind of narrow it down and, hey, it looks like this is the company we should go with and get a firm rate. That's all been new to me. And so, we've just had so much to learn, in the past year, and not nearly as scary now as it was a year ago, for sure. But yeah, the EasyLink system, one thing, I said, hey, I really would like to figure out how to send out, a Christmas and New Year's greeting to our clients by email. We were able to do that through the EasyLink system. So there is so much with that client management system that I haven't figured out yet. And just, so many helpful components to it. And so that's been really nice to have that available. I don't know how an independent agency operates without a client management system, and I know some do, and it's been wonderful.
If you were to do it all again, is there anything that you would change?
Um, yes, there's probably always some things that you would change and do differently. And there definitely have been some bumps in the road that I would do differently, handle differently, whatever. But as far as the big scope of everything, um, I, I don't know that there is. I mean, I would get signed up with OAA again. I would purchase the other agency again. I would go independent with, from Nationwide again. So yeah, even though they were huge steps in my life and they were scary, and still is somewhat, I definitely would make those steps again. Things were not real smooth in the transition from the exclusive company, but part of that was because we were going the three different directions. And, but yet they worked closely with us on that and to help us through it. And that was a very, very rough time. But they did, help us with that. And I guess everything ended up okay. But those first few months, I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to go through that transition again from exclusive to independent. But as far as getting set up with OAA, yes, I will do that again for sure.
For captives, captive agents, and producers out there, maybe a captive producer or an independent agency producer that is thinking about taking that leap of faith, overcoming that fear, and has a dream of starting their own independent agency, what advice would you give them?
Um, you know, One thing that I probably would encourage them for sure is to, listen to what you all and what OAA is recommending that you do. Because sometimes, we tend to have our own way on things and it's worked in the past, so it should work now. But yet, what worked as an independent agency might not work. Or I mean, I'm sorry, it worked as an exclusive agency, might not work as an independent agency. And so for me, I just had to trust your all's expertise. And even if, I was thinking, I'm a little hesitant about that. I would just try to keep in mind, you're the ones with the experience, and just try to go ahead and do the best I could with how you all recommended that it be done, and I'll continue to do that because I still just have so much more to learn. But yet OAA has that experience behind them and has been very successful. So there's just no reason I shouldn't trust that, that's the way to go. That's the way to do it. Another, um, you know, I like I like it when there's the Zoom meetings with other people and, you get to listen to other people's ideas. I think a lot of times there's a lot to learn, from others. Um, I've enjoyed it when we've had one-on-one calls, between you and I or between me and Ryan, that opportunity to just really discuss whatever concerns I have right at that moment. Sometimes there's things that may not necessarily be appropriate to bring up on a Zoom meeting with a bunch of people. And so, I enjoy all of that. I enjoy it when there's other people there that I can learn from, but then I enjoy the time where that I can just really talk more in detail about what's going on with our agency.
It's been instrumental in helping you with your social media for your agency.
OAA has been a huge help when it comes to the social media. There's just so much out there and so much to learn. And there's been a lot of training available and different discussions as far as kind of determining what market you're really wanting, and what age group are you wanting to market to, or just different things to make you think about as far as where you want to put your efforts when it comes to social media. And there's just so much more out there than what I realized. And a lot of that has been very helpful from OAA. And who knew a year ago that we were going to be heading into a pandemic? And I think with that, the social media and the online presence, all of that has become way more important than we ever even realized it would be. And another thing, other than just social media, getting a website set up with the exclusive agency, our website was through that company. Once going independent, it was really important to go ahead and get our own website set up. And OAA was a huge help in being able to figure out who to go to get that set up and have that presence available too.
Can our listeners contact you with any further questions that they might have?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love for somebody to call if they had questions. They can check out our website at chesterinsure.com, and can email me at katrina@chesterinsure.com, or call my office at 870-423-2185.
Well, we thank you for this insightful podcast and joining us today for our third episode of Coffee Talk. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and look forward to speaking with you more in the future.